So I think this is definitely a big issue, especially I think we also discussed about all these regulatory challenges and various other things in the last episode. So how do you really make the regulatory environment investment friendly or investor friendly? This will be a big challenge for the new government. And I think also talked about the importance of linking job creation with the investment. But this trade agreement is not an FTA. That means many of the agreed provisions are actually violating WTO norms. And this will probably will be challenged in the future. If on November 2024, on 24th November 2026, if Bangladesh graduates are from LDC status, that Bangladesh will lose preferences or privileges in many markets. Probably in EU will continue to have it for the next 3 years, and UK as well. But immediately probably will lose the privileges in India, in India and some other countries. So I think if LDC graduation really takes place in November this year, then that is going to be a big event for Bangladesh with respect to new pressure on the exporters. But the interim government's position is very interesting, because what we found that the interim government was not that keen to actually address or give right kind of attention to the concerns of the private sector. It was kind of, it has traditionally, Bangladesh was kind of, I would say, had a very conservative view about signing any FTA with any country, because one thing probably explains why its position is being an LDC, Bangladesh was enjoying privileges in other countries' market. But interestingly, Bangladesh has signed just a few days back or early this month, was signed an EP, Economic Partnership Agreement with Japan. But the trade agreement with the US was done in a very shorter time. I don't know. It's still a puzzle to me. What was the rush? Why was that rush? To go for this kind of agreement or sign this agreement.
Unless they had a mandate to deliver it to someone.
No, I don't know. So I'll remain into. I will say that probably this will be explored further in future. Nothing will remain untouched when it comes to these kind of issues. I can assure you that, but this will be thoroughly investigated. I think what the reasons behind this rush, and also what are the outcomes of this kind of agreement. Both positive and negative. And that any new government usually they have a honeymoon period of 1.5 years to 2 years. But this new government, I think they will not get that much of time, at the honeymoon period. Probably 6 months, 8 months, we need to be very focused, we all will be very much looking at the economic leadership of this new government, who, with respect to implementing a very solid and actionable and pragmatic economic agenda, addressing the domestic investment issue, inflation issue, macroeconomic management to, inflation and all these things. And at the same time, how to really deal with this volatile global environment, trading regime.
Hi, welcome to Podcast with Pratim. I have with me Professor Selim Raihan from Dhaka University. He is also the Executive Director of SANEM, Economic Think Tank. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
So in the last episode, we were discussing about the problems that the missed opportunities in Bangladesh, that Bangladesh missed over the last 1.5 years, and the non-transparent deals that had happened. So the country has, they had a lot of aspiration as in August 2024, and it is not met. And in some cases, the situation has become more complex. I believe I could sum it up properly. Now, on that, sir, you were referring about the US deal. Now, you already have entered into the deal, right? So there is no going back. Discussions are not going to bring you much benefit. Because on the other side, there is Trump. You have really no space there. Now, that said, Bangladesh had a couple of problems already. One is its heavy dependence on a single product, on particularly two markets, practically Western Europe and US. There was an effort to diversify So one good thing that we saw over the last decade is that the destination, India as a destination has improved on the scale from 15th or 16th to 7th. This is a good thing that had happened. I mean, other markets also. So now, with this one-sided agreement with US, where are you left? Because your LDC benefits with India also will dry down now. And you have to, every other trade partner will ask for their pound of flesh from you, right? So over to you. What kind of challenges you expect the next government will face on the trade and investment front?
Now, of course, on the both side, I think one is at the domestic front. I think as I also discussed in the last episode about this very investment issue, but the private sector investment is they face a lot of challenges.
I think the first challenge is to reopen, right?
Yeah,
Then fresh investment.
Yes. So I think in that case, the next government has to get the confidence of the investors back, both the domestic investment and the foreign investment. You know that there are some of the special economic zones are in the pipeline to be more operationalized. And the whole idea of the special economic zone is to attract more foreign investment. So I think this is definitely a big issue, especially I think we also discussed about all these regulatory challenges and various other things in the last episode. So how do you really make the regulatory environment investment friendly or investor friendly? This will be a big challenge for the new government. And I think I also talked about the importance of linking job creation with the investment. Now the problem is that the domestic side is okay. It is you can control the domestic. You can actually it's a kind of within your reach. But the global trading environment has changed quite drastically, and it is not you don't have any control over it.
No.
And at the same time,
things are not going to stabilize for at least for next 5 years.
Exactly. And that's why, and also we have got a new trade agreement with US. So that is also probably will have some serious implications, how Bangladesh not only deals with the US, but it deals with other trading partners. Because what I'm also hearing that the kind of privileges Bangladesh is going to give to US through this trade agreement, the other trading partners like EU, they can also seek for similar kind of privileges.
Exactly.
Because this trade agreement is not an FTA. We have to keep in mind. If it were an FTA and it was endorsed through the WTO process, then Bangladesh could actually give very, designated or exclusive privileges to US, and US vice versa. Because under FTA, you can do that. But this trade agreement is not an FTA. That means many of the agreed provisions are actually violating WTO norms. And this will probably be challenged in the future. Though we know that US has signed many trade agreements with Asian countries and other countries, and many of these are actually violating WTO norms. But for the time being, probably nobody is taking these things up to WTO. But we don't know in future, probably, if you see any kind of change in the global politics or US politics, things will see a different kind of scenario. But even if you don't take it to the WTO, Bangladesh will face the problem.
I think US is trying to move towards a plurilateral kind of system.
Yeah. So now the problem is, even if these things are not really taken up to WTO, but Bangladesh will actually face the pressure from other developing partners or trading partners, because Bangladesh is already under pressure. We know that through EU, when it comes to trade with EU, issues related to environment and ESG kind of standards or labor standards. These are very important for trading with EU. And LDC graduation, this is going to be a very important case for Bangladesh now, or event for Bangladesh, because if on November 2024, on 24th November 2026, if Bangladesh graduates us from LDC status, that Bangladesh will lose preferences or privileges in many markets. Probably EU will continue to have it for the next 3 years, and UK as well. But immediately probably will lose the privileges in India, in India and some other countries. So the thing is that this will be very difficult.
And Bangladeshi exports are extremely tariff sensitive.
Yes. So these are, yeah. So when it comes to competitiveness, since this, we got in the European Union market, our main, source of competitiveness is the tariff preference. Of course, so that means if those tariffs are gone, then or we are imposed that MFN tariff, then definitely our exporters will face a lot of pressure or new set of challenges. So I see that lot of things, a lot of new issues will be there on the table for the new government when it comes to dealing with the domestic front or trade and investments in the domestic front as well as the global trading issues. Uh, you know that deferring the LDC graduation is also a much discussed topic in Bangladesh, whether the country should seek for another 3 years or 5 years, before actually graduating out from the LDC group. This is very strongly demanded from the private sector. Though the interim government, they actually expressed their view that they don't want any kind of deferment. They just want to continue with the planned graduation in November this year. But I know that in private, when it comes to the private sector's interest, they have a strong lobby, and they are going to push it, this agenda, when the new government comes in. That means the new government will also have to face this, issue, and they have to deal with this issue quite sensibly. And there is a
Absolutely.
chance that probably they will seek for extension, for another 3 to 5 years. Though, whether even at this moment, because the time is very short, and November is not very far from now, even if you really seek for extension, whether that will be granted or not, that's not very certain. So I think if LDC graduation really takes place in November this year, then that is going to be a big event for Bangladesh when with respect to new pressure on the exporters.
So, I mean, normally there will always be resistance from the industry. I remember in 1991, you may remember that our Bombay club didn't want the economic liberalization, right? So, but the very what I was trying to ask you is what were the logics that the Yunus administration had given for not delaying the LDC graduation?
No, we're talking about the logics from the private sector.
No, by the Yunus government, what was their logic?
Okay. Just to give you the perspective of the private sector first, then the Indian government. The private sector, they are raising all kinds of questions related to these multiple shocks, one after another. And, the kind of, especially last 1.5 years, the way private sector suffered. And that means they try to make the point that they are not ready, so they need little more time, probably 3 to 5 years, to if the privileges are taken out now, they will be put into fierce competition with other competitor countries. But the interim government's position is very interesting because what we found that the interim government was not that keen to actually address or give right kind of attention to the concerns of the private sector. My position is very open. I think that, it's very difficult now, even if we apply for it, to get the kind of extension. But I think that it is worth giving it a try, if you can give it a try, through a process, if that's possible. There are cases in the past, there are, the examples in the past where an LDC or LDCs got extension. But I think that's really very complicated, especially since the resolution is already taken in the UNGA General Assembly about these three graduating countries, Bangladesh, Laos, and Nepal, the same month and same day on 2020 this year. So it will be very difficult to convince the members, of the UN Council General Assembly to overturn this decision. But there are some clauses through Doha Program of Action, through which Bangladesh, if they are really serious about it, and the request has to go from the government, the private sector, or civil society think tanks can't really place this request. So, but interestingly, what we have seen that the interim government didn't really want to take this agenda strongly forward. What they did is that they actually facilitated one study. This is the LDC Graduation Readiness Assessment uh, through UNOHRLLS, that division of the United Nations. And that readiness assessment study has already been completed, but it has not really been made public. So we don't know actually what was being mentioned there. But my understanding is that this study is not really going to say whether the country should graduate or not, but this study is going to make kind of assessment or observation whether the country is ready or not for the graduation. So this is a kind of interesting phase or discussion or debates what we have witnessed, what we are witnessing, and I'm quite sure the next government will have to address this more seriously than the interim government, the way they kind of, I would say, overlooked many of the concerns of the private sector.
Right. Just asking one thing here. In the days, I mean, we are almost living in post-WTO days, right? Almost, virtually. When the largest consumer in the world is doing these things, so everything is disrupted. And I know for sure that India is moving towards an FTA regime. We may not be having FTA with China and one odd countries, but we will have FTAs with almost all major countries, major partners, with except China, for sure. So Bangladesh has the other opportunity of immediately starting negotiations for FTAs, whether it is with EU, whether it is with India, with major places. With India, it is very important because Bangladesh has to ensure the supply line. So why they are not giving that a shot? And I mean, an associated question to this: is Bangladesh a bit too isolated? Has become a bit too isolated after the last 1.5 months, 1.5 years?
It was kind of, it has traditionally, Bangladesh was kind of, I would say, had a very conservative view about signing any FTA with any country, because one thing probably explains why its position is being an LDC, Bangladesh was enjoying privileges in other countries' market. So FTA means you have to open up your own market too. So probably that explains why the country was reluctant in going for FTA agreement, bilateral or more, with a plurilateral kind of FTA. But interestingly, Bangladesh has signed just a few days back or early this month, was signed an EP, Economic Partnership Agreement with Japan.
Right.
And which was actually, that discussion was started before the interim government actually took over. So it was a long, at least I think the last 3 years, the discussion or negotiation was going on. And then this agreement was reached. Apparently, this agreement shows that Bangladesh will get market access in Japan, and Bangladesh will also allow.
Did you have adequate discussion on the EPA?
So not at a major scale, I would say again. So that was also again an issue, that bits and pieces of discussion, but not on the major text of the agreement, which was finally signed. So again, I think that will be discussed more and more because it's just been signed last week or 8 or 10 days back. So again, these things, the very last moment of the interim government, they have taken some very major decisions. Some
What
part
was
of
the
it
hurry?
probably
What was the
no,
hurry?
some probably were the continuation of the process which was initiated a few years back, especially the EPA with Japan, and part of it probably I would say more on the positive side. But the trade agreement with the US was not, it was done in a very shorter time. I don't know. It's still a puzzle to me. What was the rush? Why was that rush? To go for this kind of agreement or signing this agreement.
Unless they had a mandate to deliver it to someone.
No, I don't know. So I'll remain into. I will say that probably this will be explored further in future. Nothing will remain untouched when it comes to these kind of issues. I can assure you that. But this will be thoroughly investigated. I think what the reasons behind this rush, and also what are the outcomes of this kind of agreement. Both positive and negative.
So all put together, we see an extremely complex situation that the new government is headed to. It needs an expansionary budget if it wants to increase the money flow. And, the projects are stalled. The infrastructure projects, many projects are stalled. Indian projects are withdrawn, most of it. So the cheap cash is not there anymore. The local demand and employment that it was creating is absent. I don't know about projects by other countries. I believe some, how is that going? The other infrastructure projects?
No, I think the interim government, they made it very clear in the last budget also that they didn't want to go for any mega infrastructure projects like what the past the Awami League government did. Probably many of the infrastructure projects need to be reviewed, which are already, incomplete, or not, already a lot of money have been spent, but we did not see any right kind of return. There are some examples, for example, from Dhaka airport to Gazipur, that road transport, it's a kind of waste of money, you can say. If you look at the faulty design and very the risky way it was constructed and very incomplete. And so there are examples of this kind of, I would say, wastage of resources. But at the same time,
but what is the advantage of keeping things half done?
No, I think the government, of course, we have to keep in mind that the interim government also faced a lot of challenges with respect to revenue mobilization. So they don't have, enough money to actually finance those. And also, since there are many allegations against those projects, so they want to review it. And the same responsibility will also fall onto the new government. What I suggest is that they will have to review all the mega projects and infrastructure projects. And then, if they really want to go for some big projects, and they will have to go anyway, because that when it comes to underground or metro rails.
Is it a political dilemma? Because, well, some, you and me both discussed in the past, some white elephant projects were definitely there, right? But say after all this white paper, after all these reviews, high cost of metro rail, we know. But then when the tendering took place, we saw that costs this time per kilometer costs have been even higher. The world's costliest. Earlier it was Asia's costliest, probably, and now it is the world's costliest. So I mean, it is politically very kind of. It's good politically to say that the other side, we will just review all the things that the other government has done, and they must have stolen money. There is a lot of precedence in Bangladesh of stopping project by the previous government. But I'm saying that in the current situation, the economy has to start moving again somewhere. So what are the options?
No, they have to prioritize in their action, probably in the very first 6 months. And, they have to prioritize some of the very immediate tasks. And you know that, any new government, usually they have a honeymoon period of 1.5 years, 2 years. But this new government, I think they will not get that much of time, at the honeymoon period. Probably 6 months, 8 months, we need to be very focused, and people will be watching.
People were extremely upset with the interim government. Let's remember the kind of hype with which it had come. And people turned so much against it in barely 6 months.
Exactly. So this government will also face these kind of demands and challenges, especially, when it comes to if they, we all will be very much looking at the economic leadership of this new government, who, with respect to implementing a very solid and actionable and pragmatic economic agenda, addressing the domestic investment issue, inflation issue, macroeconomic management to, inflation and all these things. And at the same time, how to really deal with this volatile global environment, trading regime, and also to have a very balanced geopolitical stance. I would say that, we need everyone. We need China, we need India, we need Japan, we need US for the development process.
What kind of a policy is this? You need everyone. Well, that's so fine. I mean, we also kept talking about the Panchashila and all those things. You have an economy, world's fastest growing major economy by your side, which will be third largest economy in 2 years, and it is moving at good speed. So it has surpassed its own targets. So why not good relations and making, for example, if you want to sell more goods to India, so you have to pick up the project that India had withdrawn. We had a, you know, that we had a plan to run cargo trains, scheduled cargo trains. Now, if there is no line, so where will be the cargo trains? You have a Padma bridge, which could have facilitated that, bring down the cost, transaction cost. So, but I'm sure that the politics in Bangladesh will not support this. So, so where
No,
is the
this is
option?
no. I think, of course, I think that's what we have been talking. And I think in many of my writings, I have said that, Bangladesh should work as the hub of integration in this region. It's not, you need to give that kind of signal and confidence. You need to generate that confidence with your neighboring countries that you remain as a kind of, you work as connected with the South Asia, with the Southeast Asia, between South Asia and Southeast Asia, through investment, through connectivity, and in various forms. So now, if you create some kind of stumbling blocks, and if the political situations within the domestic political forms, and also the relations with the neighboring countries, on the vice versa, so, it's not only, I would say it's only one side,
No,
but
Professor Ryan, well,
yeah.
I understand that the Tariq Rahman government, on a government to government basis, will have a better relation than the Yunus administration. Okay. But that is not going to solve the whole problem. Because, for example, you thought of inviting investments from India and gave some piece of land, rightly, wrongly, badly designed, is another issue. But you created an instance by kicking him out from there and saying something big. Now, the moment you try to reverse that, so you had another party with 40% votes, and they will harp on that. So how about it? How to solve those
No,
problems?
I think to begin with, that decision was not right, because I think, why when any country does it, it actually distorts the kind of confidence which has been created. You can actually have issues with your neighboring countries, but when it comes to trade and investment and regional cooperation, you need to look beyond those political issues, and you need to resolve. You need to keep the political difference at a level, and which is not going to harm, your trade and investment, and bigger cooperation agenda. Otherwise, the country will remain isolated. You will not really be able to, Bangladesh will be able to attract investments from other countries also. So that confidence has to be generated. I think this is also, when I was talking about the confidence for the investors, I was actually talking about also the geopolitics centering around it, and need to have a very right kind of balance, with when it comes to relation with India, China, US, European Union, Japan, and other countries in this region. It's a very challenging task, I can tell you, Mr. Bose. But at the same time, if you really
Of
want to
course, challenging.
proceed,
Of course,
yeah, if you
challenging.
really want to proceed, if you really want to take the economy forward, you need to keep that, a balance. Otherwise, if you really tilt towards one particular country, and then create the kind of tension and do something, I would say the interim government, the way many of their acts, with respect to neighboring countries, I don't think that was very right signals they, gave. So this needs to be reviewed. This needs to be rectified, I think. And the trust, we talked about building the trust in South Asia. And this is probably one of the lack of trust or trust deficit. Actually, one of the reasons why we are one of the least integrated regions in the world.
Exactly.
Keeping aside various other non-tariff or tariff issues, the whole political economy issues are centered around this trust deficit. I don't think, Bangladesh should work towards reducing that trust deficit, not to enhance the trust deficit. I think that will be the challenge for the next government. Unfortunately, I can say that the interim government could not really reduce or work towards reducing the trust deficit. Rather, were probably for various reasons, they actually contributed to in increasing the trust deficit.
Yes, you are known for understatements and rightly so on these things, but I think the situation had been a little more grave than that, the way it turned. And I fully agree with you that Bangladesh is now in a kind of really it's a geopolitical theater now. So that is where things are very, very risky, or balancing is so difficult. So let's hope that things turn better. The transactions start. One good feedback that I can give. So I was talking to an Indian company the other day. They have investments over there. It's a FMCG company. So they said that, look, if business is going on, the only issue is with security. So we had to hire answers for security. And yeah, this is like those African countries. So where the staff do not get out of the premises kind of a situation. So they have taken precaution for their staff and etc. So that these are the worries that were. I hope to some extent they should come down with time. So Indian business very minuscule present over there, but they haven't really left hope on Bangladesh and they were going on. Rather, they were keeping hope alive on this side. That is what I found.
No, I'm kind of hopeful too that the situation will improve, and that will create the space for all the neighboring countries to come and invest in Bangladesh, including the big players, because we don't really want to be a playground for geopolitics. We want to be a we need to look at our own interest, which our national interest, which is
What is
which is the
better, more
best for
interest
us.
than growing your economy? That's the best national interest.
No, no, of course, but in a more sustainable way, growing our economy in a sustainable way so that we don't actually have to backtrack. So I think this is the biggest challenge in Bangladesh now. You can borrow money from various places and see a phase of growth, or through some big infrastructure investment, you can see a phase of growth. But at the end, this is not very sustainable. You need to find a very sustainable way of your development and growth. And that's why I think the reform or economic agenda of the new government should look into these kind of aspects. How do you really make sure the investors in Bangladesh, they are safe and sound, they feel all kinds of safety there, all kind of their safety concerns are addressed properly, and they can also tell whether it's an Indian investor or Chinese investor or any
They are your
investors.
best brand ambassadors.
No, of course, and they actually give if any investor within the country, they send signals that this country is not safe, and they send signals to outside, then how the country can actually attract investment.
Can just last question, can Tariq Rahman's government be bold enough to open the economy to remove those restrictive clauses on movement of capital, which are actually restricting investment over there? So can it, or should it do it?
I think for an economy like Bangladesh, we need to have a careful position there. At this moment, I can tell you that central bank, I think it has been for a few years. On a selective basis, you can take, it's the capital account is free. So you can invest outside. But I think depending on our foreign reserve situation, depending on the, how the
The
economy
nervousness.
gets into better position, I think definitely these are the agenda for the future. May not be immediate, may not be in a very near future, but something Bangladesh will have to decide in order to attract investment, or probably you will also have to allow our investors to go outside to invest. But for that, you need to create the kind of confidence within the economy among the investors.